Hello, my name's Chuck, and welcome to Average Arcader's very first show, Cost to the Boss. Here we cover any video game that has a main boss character that we have to fight our way to, whether it be a side-scrolling beat-em-up or a first-person RPG. The key is, it has to have a main boss that we have to go through a bunch of minions to get to. As we go through, we count how many enemies we take down. Then, using the lore in the game, we calculate just how much it would have cost the boss to operate that many men, or women, or aliens, or whatever. Our very first game that we're going to cover is Streets of Rage. Streets of Rage, one of my favorite gaming franchises when growing up. I was first introduced to Streets of Rage at a relative's house. Why a relative's house instead of my own? Well, you see, I grew up in a very financially strict household. As a result of this, I didn't get my own console until I was much older. So all my early gaming happened either at the local arcade or at a relative or friend's house. I mean, why else would you visit friends and relatives other than to play video games, right? Well, why don't we get started on the game? When we first start up, we have our choice of 3 different characters: Axel, Blaze, and Adam. We're gonna go with Adam. Man, just hearing that music takes me back to when I was a kid first playing this. The Streets of Rage series always had some of the best music that Sega Genesis could even produce. As we fight our way through our first groups of enemies, we are introduced to the game's 2 most common enemies. Annoying Gangster Guy, and yes, I know that's not his real name, and Stupid Mohawk Guy, also not his real name. But these are the names I called these guys when I was younger, so this is what I'm calling them now. Further on in the level, we're introduced to Ninja Guy and Whip Lady. Yes, I know the names aren't the best, but I was like 7 when I first played this game, so give me a break. So, all in all, a pretty good startup level. It's designed not to be too challenging, but to allow for you to get a good feel for how your character handles. In fact, that's why I chose Adam for this playthrough, because I believe he handles the best out of all 3 characters. In fact, he has the longest reach and hits the hardest, and also has the best jump kick. I mean, look at it. It's awesome. As we finish off the last of the enemies, we're introduced to the first and easiest boss of this game, Boomerang Man. As we finish him off, why don't I test out the special move for this game? And yes, it is epic. That blew my mind as a kid. No other game I had played had anything like this. An artillery strike from a cop car that pulls up out of nowhere? It's pretty awesome. So we finish off Boomerang Guy, and that will be the end to round 1. So why don't we count down the enemies that we've taken down so far? Why don't we go to the takedown counter? So, for our first round in Streets of Rage, we have taken down 23 annoying gangster guys, 4 annoying mohawk guys, 2 ninja guys, 4 whip ladies, and 1 boomerang man. Not a bad start, but let's push on to round 2. So, round 2 starts and we get some more of that awesome Streets of Rage music. Let's listen to it for a little bit. So round 2 is not too different from round 1, except for 2 major differences. Number 1, they introduce a new enemy in this round, Juggler Guy. Now, Juggler Guy confused and even freaked me out a little bit when I was a child. Mainly because I had no idea what he was doing. I mean, yes, it's obvious he's juggling, but what is he doing with his feet? I mean, who walks that way? Is he, skipping, jogging? I don't know. Either which way, younger Chuck was freaked out by Juggler Guy. So the second big difference in round 2 and round 1 is the crazy difficulty spike between the bosses. We go from the super easy Boomerang Guy to the frustratingly difficult Claw Guy. I mean, this guy was a pain in the butt. He's super fast, hits hard, and you cannot jump kick him. So you have to rely on lucky hits and your special. With Claw Guy finally defeated, we put an end to round 2. Let's go to the takedown counter and count the enemy takedowns. In round 2, we took down 31 annoying gangster guys, 5 annoying mohawk guys, 5 ninjas, 3 whip ladies, 3 jugglers, and 1 claw guy. Not that bad of a round, but let's push on to round 3. Round 3 is not that remarkable. It's a little bit shorter than most of the other rounds, and all it has in it is just slightly more difficult versions of all the common enemies. And as for the boss, Big Wrestling Guy, well, he's pretty easy. I mean, he can catch you off guard because he can be pretty quick, but once you figure out that all you gotta do is keep jump kicking him, he goes down pretty quick. So with that, we put an end to round 3. Let's head to the takedown counter. So in round 3, we took down 20 annoying gangster guys, 5 annoying mohawk guys, 6 ninjas, 7 whip ladies, and 1 big wrestling guy. Let's move on to round 4. So round 4 starts to crank up the difficulty. There are no new enemies added besides the boss, but all of the common enemies that you fight, almost all of them anyway, are now stronger and faster. On top of that, there are now these pits all throughout the level. If you fall in them, you instantly lose a life, but you can knock and throw enemies into them. So they're kind of like a double-edged sword. You just need to watch how you use them. But as for the boss, he's the hardest part in this game. Who is he? Big fat guy, who can also breathe fire. Now I bet you're thinking this would be cool to younger Chuck. It wasn't. In fact, it was one of the most frustrating parts about this game. You have no idea how many controllers I broke in frustration while fighting this guy. But with endurance, you can beat him. So with a few last hits, we finish him off, ending this round. Ready to take on round 5. But first, let's stop off at the takedown counter. In our completion of round 4, we took down 27 annoying gangster guys, 15 annoying mohawk guys, 2 ninjas, 3 whip ladies, 1 juggler guy, and 1 big fat guy. So we're off to round 5. Round 5 is a very unique, confusing, and frustrating round all wrapped into one. What do I mean? Well, it's unique because next to the final round, it has the most enemies that you fight in it. It's confusing because, well, if you look in the background, you can clearly see that we're on the water. This is a boat. So how can this happen? That makes absolutely no sense to me. I mean, I understand that when you're playing video games from time to time, you just gotta give in the video game logic. But we're in the middle of a boat. How'd that car get there? Anyway, later on in the game, I'll show you just why this is confusing to me. But moving on with the round, the other reason why this is frustrating is because at this time the game starts adding more than one boss battle into each round. You get one midway, and then you get one big final boss. For this one, the mid boss is just another big wrestling guy, not too bad. But the final boss in this one, let me show you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Crazy Jumping Ladies. Yes, that's what I really called them when I was younger, because they drove me crazy. All they do is jump around like monkeys, and you have to be very precise where you hit them. Otherwise, they're just gonna wreck you. They hit hard, and they move quick. And man, they are a pain to beat. I have a more hard time fighting them than I do the final boss of the whole entire game. So thanks to our special and some well-placed hits, we're able to take them down and end this round. Let's head over to the takedown counter and then move on to round 6. So in round 5, we took down a total of 29 annoying gangster guys, 6 annoying mohawk guys, 14 ninjas, 7 whip ladies, 5 juggler guys, 1 big wrestling guy, and 2 crazy jumping ladies. I think that's the most enemies we've taken down so far in a level, so let's move on to round 6. So round 6 is pretty similar to round 5. You fight harder versions of all the common enemies again, and you have to fight 2 more boss battles. The first one with a big fat guy, which, it's annoying, but then the final boss battle for the round is with 2 claw guys. So yeah, it's super annoying. I mean, 1 claw guy is annoying enough, 2 of them really cranks up the frustration. But thanks to your super and well-placed hits, you can beat them. With round 6 finally over, we can move on to the takedown counter, count the takedowns for the round. In round 6, we took down a total of 23 annoying gangster guys, 12 annoying mohawk guys, 4 ninjas, 8 whip ladies, 1 juggler guy, 1 big fat guy, and 2 claw guys. Time for us to move on to round 7. For the second to last level of a game, round 7 is pretty easy. I mean, you just stay on the elevator the whole time, fighting waves of enemies as it goes up. There are no boss battles, and despite the fact that it doesn't make sense just like round 5, you can still use your super. Now don't get too comfortable, because although round 7 may be easy, round 8 makes up for it, and then some. Let's head over to the takedown counter so that we can move on to the next round. So, in round 7 we took down a total of 17 annoying gangster guys, 13 annoying mohawk guys, 14 ninjas, and 5 whip ladies. Not that much enemy variety, but let's go ahead and move on to round 8. Round 8 is annoying, just really, really annoying. In an effort to rob you of hard-earned lives and precious continues, the game throws everything it can at you, starting with removing your special attack. So, in the middle of the water in a boat, yeah, you can pull that cop car in. In the middle of a factory with a bunch of factory equipment and conveyor belts, yeah, sure, it'll fit. But going down a hallway in a building, nah, that's just too much, can't do it. On top of that, you have to fight 5 different boss battles before you get to the final boss of the game. That's 1 boomerang guy, 1 big wrestling guy, 1 claw guy, 1 big fat guy, and 2 more crazy jumping ladies. The pain is real. After we defeat all of them, we are finally confronted with the final boss of the game. Big Machine Gun Guy, aka Mr.X. We're presented with a choice to join him, and if we say yes, we get knocked down to round 6, but if we say no, we're able to fight him. And for the final boss, he's actually not that hard. Don't get me wrong, he can be challenging at times, but compared to the other bosses in the game, he's pretty easy. Anyway, we defeat him, and now we can finally do the final takedown counter for the whole entire game. So after we add round 8 into the mix, our total takedowns for Streets of Rage are 424. That's 199 annoying gangster guys, 84 annoying mohawk guys, 71 ninjas, 41 whip ladies, 12 juggler guys, 4 claw guys, 4 crazy jumping ladies, 3 big wrestling guys, 3 big fat guys, and 2 boomerang men. Also, we also have to include the machine gun guy boss. So, now that we have a count, let's count the costs. So before I count the costs, we need to first figure out what the costs are. You see, I've looked through every piece of lore that I can find on this game, and there's nothing that talks about what Mr. X was paying the people working for him. Which is to be expected. Old games like this didn't really have that detailed of lore. I mean, the most you ever got was the story that was in game, and then maybe like a comic book tie-in. That's it. So what we're gonna have to do is use a real-world equivalent. Something kind of like a mafia or a cartel. So if we use a mafia as a guideline, when it comes to pay, Mr. X's organization could be broken down into 3 different categories. Number 1, soldier. Now this would be made up of any common thug or gangster. They would probably make around $1,000 a week. In game, they would be made up of the annoying gangster guys, annoying mohawk guys, and juggler guys. Now the second category would be mercenaries. These are people with unique skills hired in to do certain jobs. They would start out making $14,000 a week. In game, they're made up of the whip ladies and the ninja guys. Now the last tier is the tier right before the big boss of whatever the organization is. These are territory bosses. They start out making around $35,000 a week. A territory boss is someone who controls a certain group or building within the territory that was controlled by the group. So, in game, they would be made up of the big fat guys, the crazy jumping ladies, the big wrestling guys, the claw guys, and the boomerang men. So, now that we have an idea of what the costs should be, let's start adding them up. There are 295 enemies that we take down in game that can be considered soldiers. So at $1,000 a week, the total would be $295,000 a week in soldiers. What about mercenaries? Well, 112 enemies that we take down could be considered mercenaries. At $14,000 a week, their grand total would be $1,568,000 a week in mercenaries. And as for territory bosses, there are 16 characters that would be considered territory bosses. But that would put their grand total only at $640,000, seeing that there's only a few of them even though they make a lot. So, what's the grand total? Well, in pay, Mr. X was paying out around $2,503,000 a week. Wow. That's over $10 million a month and over $120 million a year. Wow, I had no idea the numbers would get that high. To tell you the truth, I thought they would max out at $1 million a year. I was nowhere close to $120 million. But I still enjoyed going back through this game again. I really had fun. But that brings our first episode of Cost to the Boss to an end. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. I plan on covering the rest of the Streets of Rage series in my next couple of videos. But if you have any games you feel we should cover on the show, please leave them in the comments section. But until next time, I'm Chuck, and this is Average Arcader. Have a nice day.